Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Real Talk with Joe and Cody. My name is Joe Skipper, owner of Skipper Realty Group, brokered by eXp Realty, with my buddy Cody Wilhelm with Residential Mortgage. How's it going, my man?
Doing pretty good. You?
I'm good. The dog is taking like 2 steps forward, like half steps back now. So we're getting there with her. So
there you go.
I'm actually starting to like her now and starting to.
You can beat her less now.
I love the dog, but yeah, she's a puppy. So it's kind of. But we're navigating it. She's pretty much potty trained. Besides my kids making mistakes, with not taking her out, but we won't go into that.
Darn kids,
we won't go into that online here. But yeah, no, everything's going well, man. We're just going into the holiday season, going into Thanksgiving. We're laying low. What about you?
Yeah, I think so. I think we're laying low. Eli, he started soccer with his school. This is the first time he's played soccer with his school.
Cool.
And so he's got his first game tonight, and so right after football's over. Now it's just jumping into soccer, so that's cool. Keeping him busy and keeping us running around. We actually thought we lost one of our cats the other day. Might have been yesterday.
Really?
Yeah, my wife reached out to me and she's like, "Hey, we haven't seen one of the cats in like 24 hours. I don't know what the deal is," because they're not kittens anymore, but they're like teenage cats. We've had them for probably 6 months or something like that, and the one that had gone missing, she was the one that was more of the outside hunter. The other one, he's just lazy and wants nothing to do with anything. And we're like, oh man, that's such a bummer. And Eli, his room is downstairs, and he's like, yeah, I swear I saw her, not like this morning. Anyways, turns out she was locked in his closet and she wreaked havoc.
Oh my.
He's got a bunch of games up on the shelves and
she just went to town.
She pulled all of it down. It was just a pile, and there's poop in there. I mean, it was like
leave it to a kid to not even notice either. Like, I think she might. Like, I thought I saw her.
Like, you didn't hear that destruction that was going on in there?
Totally sounds like my kid. No, I didn't get it.
Yeah. We're like, hey, can you clean that up? And he's like, okay. So he picks up like 2 things, and a little later I go in there. I'm like, did you even do anything?
Yeah.
Like, this is a wreck. Well, it was already messy before.
Sounds about right, man.
Come on.
I'm not the only one, because I get that a lot with my kids. Is like, please just do something. But
right. Yeah. Like, I don't ask you to do a whole lot. Maybe just try to help.
Basics. Yeah. I know. We're like our parents now, though, man.
It's a weird reversal of things. I think the hardest part too is like seeing it and understanding where they're coming from, but also realizing like, I don't care.
For sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, cool, man. So I haven't seen anything crazy with rates. Like, I haven't seen any, I did a video yesterday and posted it about kind of national trends and what the forecast is. And it sounds like good news overall. It looks like nationwide we're settling, coming into a settlement. Nothing like is going to at least predicted to burst or anything like that.
Yeah.
But it is settling. But they're forecasting that, rates will ease. And as rates ease, the buyer demand's still there. Buyers are just slowing down, slowing their roll until rates go down. Your thoughts?
That's about the same. I mean, I think the expectation is that they're going to go down. It's just when and how quick they do. And
for sure.
I wouldn't be surprised if we started to see, I mean, the Fed, I can't remember if we had talked about it the last time, but the Fed did drop rates again by another 0.25%. So it's been 0.75% so far that they've dropped this year. But it hasn't really moved the needle yet on the mortgage side. So I think just more time.
For sure. What's interesting is like, I've had a couple buyers that have kind of given up on the wait and see, which is, because they were like, we thought that it was going to drop, and so we were waiting for that drop to see, the fives again. Yeah. And they kind of are back in the market, even in a slow time, they're back in the market at 7 or 6, high 6s, because they're like, I just don't foresee we can afford it now, so just go for it. So it's interesting, like different mindsets now. Like, I think some people are easing that.
When you've been waiting for a year or longer, like at some point you're just like, all right, either we're just going to keep waiting for who knows how long, and we're just going to sit it out, or we just have to jump on it. And
for sure,
I know more and more people are getting in that position. As long as they can pull the trigger on it, it's like, all right, well, if we need to, we'll refinance in a couple of years or whenever that time comes, but we can't just keep waiting.
For sure. That's why those flexible options of that 2-1 buy down, 3-1 buy down, all those sort of things are good. Yeah. Because, rather than wait and see homes go by you that you want, that you'd like, having the ability to get them now and
Yep.
figure it out later.
It makes sense. I know.
Speaking of which, we're kind of in the market, and I kind of piqued my interest to ask you this question. We're looking for an upsizing of house. The kids are getting bigger. We have a dog, and home offices and all that sort of stuff. So, long story short, we're looking for homes. But it piqued my interest with you, and maybe with people that are watching, of people who are business owners. Obviously, are in a unique scenario to purchase a home. We don't have generally the traditional tax forms and the different incomes and the steady paychecks and all the stuff that makes a perfect mortgage. So I wanted to chat with you, kind of, what do you see happen? What is your business? What does your company offer? And I guess even more generally, how do self-employed people that don't have that traditional, or are afraid because they don't have that traditional the traditional documents for qualifying for a mortgage, what do you see with people like that? What do they provide? What can they provide? And how do they get into a home they want, being self-employed?
So the first thing that usually ends up coming up is, how long have you been self-employed for? Is there a history? Because most programs, regardless, are going to want to see 2 years. But a lot of times what ends up happening is if they go through a CPA, the CPA's job, and I think that they would agree with this, is to try to get you the best deal on your taxes, right? To structure it, give you the most write-offs, which is awesome. However, it always ends up being the biggest downfall of self-employed buyers, because, if they've got $100,000 in income, reported income, but then the write-offs it now puts them down to 60 grand. Well, that's the number that we're going off of. We can add a few things in here and there, but overall, it just takes down that reduction. So I guess before I jump into the full answer of things, I always try to encourage people, like, if you think that you're going to, or if you have any general idea that you might be purchasing in the next couple of years, like, talk to your CPA or your accountant or whoever it is and let them know, so that they can start to plan in advance, knowing that, hey, maybe we're not going to take all the write-offs that we can. We're going to kind of be strategic. I can also help coordinate with them too, to say, like, here are some numbers that we're needing to see. So that way they can kind of plan accordingly to make sure that they're kind of getting the best of both worlds. But I mean, there's a couple different options. We can do bank statement loans. So instead of the traditional way of using your tax returns to show your income, they can be viewed through your bank statements. So that can be a 12-month history or a 24-month history. Typically, 24-month history is going to get you a better rate, better terms, because it's looking at it and it's averaging it over the course of 2 years. You can do it with a 12-month. It's just not quite as favorable because you're only going off of a year's worth of time. But at that point, the tax returns are not even factored into it. So that's always a good one. It's always kind of like that fallback option for if the taxes just aren't there, but the income is, then you can use that, and it's just averaging the income over that. Another one, it's not necessarily for self-employed people, but like DSCR loans, which are for investment purchases, where it is really just, I can't remember if we'd gone over it one time before.
We've gone over it.
Yeah. So it's just it's essentially the net return on the rental. So it's all just based on how much your payment is going to be and how much of a return in rent you're going to have. And at that one, you're not even there's no income documents. All the qualifying is based on your credit score and that return, that debt service coverage ratio for that property. Once you get outside of those, from a kind of, I guess you'd say, normal financing side of it, it gets a little harder to find things where it's like new employer, or Freddie Mac. They did away with it a few years ago, but they used to have an option where if you change jobs, it was the same career choice, and it was your first year of business, they would still honor that. And then they did away with that a couple of years ago to where they require 2 years. So your traditional FHA, VA, conventional loans, those are all going to require 2 years tax returns. It's all going to be averaged over the course of 24 months for that. So if you can't hit those, then that's when you kind of start to go to that next step, which would be bank statement loans, to try to kind of finagle a little bit more. And then outside of that, you're probably starting to look into maybe more of a hard money private investor type financing where it's maybe going to be short term, just to get you through that next phase. We do have, our company does have portfolio loans, and there's not really like a set, this is what the portfolio loan is for. So kind of a case by case situation for that too, especially if they can see that this is somewhat of a short term thing, whether it's just not enough time to verify or something has to change and that's going to be fixed and changed in 6 months. They're usually pretty open to stuff like that. So that's kind of like, when I'm going through it, I'm looking, does it fit these boxes? No. Okay. Can we go portfolio loan, maybe option? If that's a no, then, bank statement loans, let's see because it's kind of like each one that you do, once I get past our portfolio loan stuff, like the bank statement loans, it's typically going to be a little bit higher of an interest rate. And then you go to the private, hard money type thing. And that's going to be another bigger jump up in interest rate and down payment requirement. And, they want those shorter terms because they're just in kind of like more of the loan flipping business where it's just short term. You need this money for 6 months or maybe a year. And then after that, your loan's due. So,
okay. So you answered my question. I think with one, it sounds like it's more interest rate based, not necessarily qualifying. You obviously have to qualify for the loan, but which way you go affects maybe the interest rate. So say, for example, the bank statement way is probably more of an interest rate than the tax return way, right? Okay.
Yep.
And not to get into my personal life, because now I'm thinking about it with us, but Christina had worked. So when you have two people, working, starting their own business, in their own business, one has done it for multiple years, one has done it for just a short time. Do you combine those bank things, or do you, one's got a tax return for last year, but not this year, but the other one's been doing the solo thing for a while? What do you do in that sort of scenario? Not trying to get myself pre-approved right here live, but
we'll do it. I mean, part of it's going to come down to, are they two separate businesses? Are they filed as two separate, you have a Schedule C and she has a Schedule C, or if they're both under, I guess you probably haven't filed one yet jointly. But if you do, then it's just a matter of, the ownership with it.
Okay.
If you both file it under the same one, then it's going to be, factored in as both of you, because it's income for the business.
That
it's all running through. So if you did, say your normal filing of Skipper Realty Group, if you did it as a Schedule C or however you end up filing it, and then now Christina's income is added in there, but it's still part of the business, then it's just going to be additional income for the business that's now split between the two of you. So
the bank
it's going to net out.
The bank statement loan would be using that one bank, or that, no matter, it's not the two separate. We couldn't combine her previous year of work, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's all going to be, we go back 2 years, but that's just to verify that there's a 2-year history.
Yeah.
But anything in the past was essentially just checking the box that we're verifying the 2-year history.
Yeah.
It really doesn't play any factor into more stability or compensating factor or anything. It's really just based on what's the existing income, and is it likely to continue? Is it steady?
Okay, cool.
So but if it all falls under the same taxes.
And not about us, but it got me thinking again, with this new, with the election and with President Trump coming in next year, have you heard any whisperings? I was just thinking of interest rates. I was thinking of different loan programs when you were saying Fannie and Freddie got rid of that. Are there any whispers or hints of Trump being pro, house purchasing, or anything that people are at least talking about? Not to say that you should predict anything, but have you heard any rumblings of, hey, his plan is to do X to help people buy?
I mean, from what I've heard, which isn't really anything too specific regarding the housing side of it, but I have heard talks of deregulating some things, and I don't know if that's just within the whole government, or if that's partly going to be something with the housing side of it. I mean, there are a lot of regulations, and I know it's all protection for buyers, and it's all a good thing. But I do think that some of it, and I'm probably a little biased, but I think some of it is a little much, because I think the part that sucks is it's taken the common sense part of it out. It's just, does it fit the guideline? No,
Yeah.
then it doesn't work.
Sure.
So I think that would be really good. And I have heard, like I said, just like little rumblings of deregulating certain things, or at least reducing regulations. I know that from what I have seen, it is up to that point where that is a big focus, is making homeownership more affordable, and rent, just housing in general. So I would think that is probably top of the list, but I haven't heard any specific like plans laid out or proposals of what they are, or what he or they are wanting to necessarily do. But I do think that would play a role in it. Opening up maybe the guidelines a little bit to where it's still safe and secure, and people aren't going to get into something that they shouldn't, but also maybe having a little bit more flexibility, because we're all used to it now. I mean, it's been this way since probably 2009, 2010, when they kind of like overhauled everything. But
I think though that you and I have had at least one that is an absolute ridiculous, couldn't pre-approve them because they didn't fit the guidelines. But in every other aspect of life, they were well approved. They were well qualified. So yeah, I see what you're saying, because I think that if we're having it happen between you and I, everyone else is having that same issue. So I think that common sense is, it's good to have the regulations, because obviously that caused a lot of the issues that we had in 2008. But but I think we could kind of step it back a little bit, and especially in the case that you know which one I'm talking about, of like, that was absurd that we couldn't get
and it's
pre-approved.
Yes, exactly. There should be, in my opinion, which means nothing, but in my opinion, there should be, if somebody has, after their down payment and everything, they're going to have, say, $100,000 or more in the bank, and they have a steady job. But it's, for whatever reason, you can't count the income because they haven't been doing it long enough, or it's variable income. Like, I feel like there should be some different kind of compensating factors. Like, okay, if you have 12 months worth of your mortgage payment in a bank account that's accessible, that should be enough security for someone that has a job. We verify these things. So I think that going in and just kind of like revamping things, like, okay, we've all learned now what not to do. Now maybe we can kind of just loosen things up just a little bit, to where it's like the person that you're talking about, it's everything is there. It just doesn't fit in the box. It's like, well, that doesn't really make sense that you shouldn't be able to get pre-approved, because you have everything. It's just the timelines aren't there, or
for sure.
It just makes it more frustrating, because I think it does feel like in that type of situation, like, this person should be able to buy a home. And especially when you look at other situations where somebody's got lower credit and they're using, say, down payment assistance, and they have $5 in the bank, and and like they're going to qualify for a loan. And not to say that they shouldn't either, but it's like, when you look at the side-by-side comparisons, it feels to me like,
makes sense.
If we're really concerned about lending hundreds of thousands of dollars and the ability to repay and everything, like, I don't know, maybe it's time to kind of start rethinking things a little bit.
I agree.
And I'm sure most big time institutions will probably be listening to this. So hopefully they can take note.
No, and you said that no one cares what you think, but I care what you think. So
well, thank you.
That matters.
Thank you. That's why I come on here with you.
Well, cool, man. Well, thank you for that. And I guess until next week, I don't see anything, knock on wood, anything crazy changing in the next week. But if people want to stay tuned for next week and just hear our lovely voices and hear about our kids and dogs, that works too. I find that people care about the dogs more than the kids, which I don't know what that says about our friends and society, but
well, it's just entertaining.
Exactly. Okay, man. Well, thanks so much. We'll chat with you next week.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. See you.